to yield now to Mr. Espaillat, gentleman from New York, to recognize him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Budgets are political documents. They pretty much state what our values are, what we believe in, how do we look at the state of the economy in America. Budgets they have a heartbeat, they have a pulse. And part of the problem in developing a fair and transparent budget that reflects the condition of America, hunger in America, people's inability to pay rent in America, the struggles of working families in America, is the fact that many of my colleagues in Congress are millionaires. And so as a result, they are unable to penetrate and reach out of the bubble and see what the American people are going through on a daily basis. And so, for example, the child tax credit program was referred to here as an entitlement. $2,000 for a 17-year-old or under. That results to $166.66 a month for a mom. Is that going to break our back? That's something that we cannot do for somebody that maybe is on a hunger line, trying to feed their families. The earned income tax credit for poor families that are making under $59,000 a year. Just a little push so they could maybe buy Pampers, milk, and maybe be able not to fall back on the rent. Is that going to break our backs? And so we propose a commission here. Some folk call that the paralysis of analysis. America is smart. They read through stuff. You know what they say out there, those that cannot go outside of the bubble because they just have so much money in their bank accounts that they don't have a clear vision? You want to kill a good idea? Build a commission. You want to stop innovativeness? Give it to a task force. You want to have deep cuts that cut to the bone like they try to do this year? Study it. Create a study group. This year we had an agreement between the leader of our House and the president. Some of us felt that they usurped appropriators like myself that constitutionally have the power of the purse. And that wasn't enough. They broke the agreement and they came here and they wanted to cut it to the bone. That mom that wants $166.66 per month through a child tax credit, they wanted to cut what some of you call entitlements to the bones. Now, revenue. Revenue is at the center of this because the Trump tax cut benefited the very wealthy, the very rich, not the police officer, not the teacher, not the civil servant, the very rich. That's an entitlement, a corporate entitlement. And that's right at the core, and it's not talked about, debt and deficit. So, Mr. Yarmuth, thank you for still having a fail grade in your lapel. And I want to hear from you, if you may. What is the role of these Trump tax cuts for the very rich in the current fiscal condition facing the nation?
You know, talking about tax cuts, thank you, Mr. Espaillat, for that question. I go back to my brother, who's been very successful in business and always voted Republican because he wanted to pay less tax. Well, back in 2008, he called me and he said, "John, you'll be happy to know that Judy, his wife, Judy and I are maxing out to Barack Obama, and we're voting for all Democrats this year." And I said, "That's great, Bob. What was your epiphany?" And he said, he's in the barbecue business, barbecue restaurants. He said, "I finally figured out that if nobody can afford barbecue, it doesn't matter what my tax rate is." And I think, in terms of, Chairman Moore's comment about debt to GDP ratio, There are an awful lot of economists now who say that's not a meaningful ratio. It doesn't really reflect the sustainability or indicate the sustainability of our debt. So, my fear about a commission is, yes, you could take the position that there's no harm in doing a commission. It does promote conversations, but there is some danger with a commission that makes recommendations that fail, because then the commission's failed, Congress has failed once again. So if you said, we're gonna do a commission which actually analyzes the question of debt sustainability and doesn't get into recommendations for cuts or increases and so forth, and really provides some education as opposed to suggestions, I might be much more inclined to accept that, because I think that would be a valuable thing for the country to have. Exactly what is the impact of our debt? Doesn't matter. How much can we live with? But again, if you're going to get into recommendations that ultimately are going to prove very difficult politically, then I think there's a real risk in doing a commission, and that's why I'm concerned about it.
And that's why I love that there's so many economists out there, because I oftentimes love to disagree with them. And I will vehemently disagree. The debt to GDP isn't a strong indicator of what we need to continue on. And to just make the point, as I move to our last questions here, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act was actually the impetus. It doubled our child tax credit. So we have to recognize, as making that point, child tax credit was doubled under the TCJA, right? And so this was is something that gets blamed in saying it was only for the rich, when it targeted the middle class, and making sure with the standard deduction as well. Like, that's just facts that there was there. And I get it. Like I've said, I've criticized everybody in the last 20 years, and that everybody falls into that. But I do think that's an important point to make.